am going to just make a solution for remembering the country names or the places where these crops are cultivated. IBC coffee is so fresh. Hello budding charms, I hope everyone is doing well, and we are back with the next one short session on the topic called agriculture. So this is chapter 3 from geography, and I hope everyone enjoyed chapter 1 too, and it has been uploaded already, so please go through resources chapter, then come back to the next chapter. It's nothing but agriculture. So now we are going to have a wonderful lesson, so I kindly request everyone to pay attention throughout the class and try to take down the important points. Not only that, if you find any kind of doubts in between, please don't hesitate to ask your doubts in the comment box. I'm here to help you out. Let's get started. My name is Aishwarya Sindhu Ramachandran and I'm your geography educator today. So here we are going to see a lot of things related to agriculture. So I kindly request everyone to take down the important points too. So let's get started. Hey, look at it. We are going to talk about agriculture. What is mean by agriculture? This is a very basic definition, and please understand it. I'm going to explain it one by one, so please listen carefully. So agriculture is a process of growing crops, fruits, vegetables, flowers and rearing of livestock in large quantities to meet the demand of population. So if we consider a country, the population is very high, right? And what about their food? What about their necessities? These have to be met, right? Yes. So this is actually happening through agriculture. So whatever the food that you eat every day, it's all coming from agriculture. Let's take the example of fruits, vegetables, flowers and all the necessities. All these are coming through agriculture. Got it? So that's all about agriculture. And when you look at this one, you can see that, oh, farmers are very important in our country, right? Because they need to cultivate these kind of crops so that we have the right amount of food to eat, right? But not only that, if you want to talk about milk, meat, eggs, and this is happening through the rearing of livestock. And I hope you're clear. And now we are going to learn a few more things about it, because agriculture is not a simple process. It has various steps. So that's what I'm going to tell you. So let's find it out one by one. So now we are going to talk about types of economic activities in agriculture. I feel so energetic right after my meals. I had rice and chana curry today. Oh, but what if I tell you that the rice has already gone through multiple processes before coming to my plate? Do you believe it? Yes, you have to believe it. But how? Oh, that is an important thing to know, right? Yes. So that's where we need to understand the importance of types of economic activities in agriculture. Look at this. The transformation of a plant to its final product consists of different economic activities. Oh, growing into a plant, giving paddy out of it, then it is getting processed, then the rice can be taken out. These rices have to be transported to a place where they can sell, and from there I bought rice, I cooked it, then I ate it as a rice. Oh, this is a very lengthy process, right? Yes, that's what we are going to learn now. So as a paddy plant, you know that it has grains, right? But these grains cannot be eaten like that. It needs to be converted into rice. So rice can be our final product. Clear? So to make a normal paddy grain into a rice itself is a great complex process. So in that process, there are mainly 3 activities present. What are they? Primary activities, secondary activities, and finally tertiary activities. So these 3 are considered as various steps or economic activities present in the transformation of a product into its final form. So that's what we are going to learn now. So let's take the same example here. Primary activities. What is the example for it? Extraction and production of natural resources. So paddy has to be grown first, right? Then only we'll get the grains out of it. So that's what the very first step. So now the production part is over. Once it is produced, it needs to be processed. So these paddy grains have to be processed so that you can take rice out of it, right? Yes, it needs to undergo threshing, winnowing, so that it can just become a proper rice grain. These rice grains have to be taken to the place where they can sell it. Oh, that comes under the part of tertiary activities. Transportation of finished goods to sell in the market. So the rice grains are ready. So these have to be sold. Then only the consumers or the people can buy it from a place. Got it? So that's where the transport, trade, all of these occur, and these can be considered as tertiary activities. Oh, this is a very lengthy process, right? Yes. So this is how the economic activities are basically happening. And now we are going to learn the different steps which are included in our agriculture practices. What are these agriculture practices? Let's learn together. I told you that if you want to make rice out of paddy grains, then you need to make sure that it is undergoing a lot of processes. But what are they? Let's name it one by one. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this one by one so that you will get a good idea about it. The very first one can be called it as tilling. Second one can be called it as sowing. Third one can be called it as manuring. Fourth one is irrigation. Fifth one is weeding. Sixth one is harvesting. And finally, it's storage. So these are the basic steps included in agriculture practices. But what are these processes? Let's learn together. Look at this. Oh, I think the person is preparing the soil using this particular machinery. Oh, but why? Before sowing the seed into the soil must be prepared, right? I'll give you one more example. If you want to write your exam properly, you need to prepare really well. Otherwise, you may fail in your exam or you may not be able to answer the questions properly. That's what the same logic goes here. So before sowing the seeds, the soil needs to be ready. That process can be called it as tilling. Soil preparation to mix the nutrients and for the better aeration. So using this process, the soil is going to mix with the nutrients again. What is tilling? Tilling is a process of making the soil ready for the cultivation so that the seeds can grow really well. But I told you that soil preparation has to be done. We can use various methods for it. Plowing can be one of those. What happens to the soil? The lower layer of soil comes to the top and the upper layer of the soil comes to the bottom part. So in this way, the nutrients are going to get mixed with the soil. And it can also create a better aeration. So the plant roots can penetrate deep into the soil and grow really well. So this is the idea behind tilling. But what about the second process? That's what we are going to learn next. So now we are going to talk about sowing. Sowing is a second process. Very simple. Once your soil is ready, it's time to just put your seeds into the soil. That's what the same process we are doing here. Insertion of seeds into the soil at proper depth and distances. So you know that all the seeds have to grow really well. So seeds need to be put at proper depth and distance so that they will not have any kind of competition for the necessities like sunlight, water and nutrients. So we need to avoid the competition between these plants. And that is what the reason behind keeping a proper distances between the seeds, so that we can avoid the competition between the seeds to get the necessities. And now what we are going to learn? We all know that there are various methods that can be used for sowing. What are they? Earlier, we used seed funnels to just distribute the seeds. But today, we have something called seed drill, which can insert the seeds directly into the soil at proper depths and distances. And now, what we are going to learn? We are going to learn about the third process. And here is the next step. Oh, what is this? I think a farmer is putting something into the soil here. What is manuring? It is the process of adding nutrients into the soil. And you can find that the farmer is actually putting the nutrients into the soil in the form of manure, or you can say as compost. So these things can be added into the soil so that the plants can absorb these nutrients and grow really well. So this is the way the manuring has been done. And what about the next process? Let's learn it. Oh, water is also very much necessary, right? Yes. So that's called irrigation. So right after adding nutrients, irrigation has to be done. What does mean by irrigation? Supply of water into the soil for crops' better growth. So the plants need to grow, and for that, water is also very much necessary. So water needs to be supplied to the plants so that they can absorb it and use it for the processes. Nowadays, we have something called water sprinklers which can distribute water equally throughout the farmland. But earlier, we used different kinds of systems such as moat system, water wheels, etc. to bring water to the farmland. But now, the techniques have improved and people are using advanced methods of irrigation. And now let's learn what is going to happen next. Hey, look at it. It's all about weeding. Don't get confused. Weeding is a process of removing the unwanted plants from the farmland. So look at these. These are the crops. So these crops have to grow really well. But when you look at this picture, you can see that there are some unwanted plants which are just growing in between these crops. I think these weeds or unwanted plants are going to grab the nutrients which are supposed to be received to the crops. Oh, that is very bad, right? So these crops and weeds have a competition to get the nutrients, water, and all of these. So this competition is not at all good. It's not a healthy competition. So the crops are very important to us. So these crops have to be grown properly. So for that, nutrients, water, sunlight, everything is so much essential. So for that, we need to avoid the competition between weeds and the crops. And therefore, what has to be done? The unwanted plants have to be removed from the farmland. And this process can be called it as weeding. Clear? So I hope everyone is clear with it. And now what we are going to learn, it's all about the next process. Are you ready to see it? Let's learn. Oh, it's time to harvest. What does it mean by that? You can see a person is actually collecting the cotton bolls from the cotton plant. That means it's time to harvest. They can collect the yield from the farmland because it's matured and it's time to harvest so that we can take the yield and can be taken to the storage spaces, right? Yes. And what about the next process? It's all about storage. Storage is a process of storing the collected yield. Look at these spaces. It's really huge, right? Yes. So these are the places where they store these yields or matured crops right after the harvest, so that these can be protected from the insect attacks or any kind of problems which are due to the climatic conditions. After the storage, what is going to happen to these grains? Oh, these have to be taken to the places where they can sell. And that's where we go and buy the things just by paying the money. So let's see what is going to happen next. I told you that agriculture practices are not that simple. It has various steps. It is very complex in nature. What are the different steps? Tilling, sowing, manuring, irrigation, weeding, harvesting, finally storage. But for these things to happen, there are certain inputs which are needed. What are these inputs? There are two inputs have to be discussed here. Human inputs and physical inputs. What are they? Let's learn it. What are these human inputs? Oh, without humans, nothing can be done, right? So look at it. Construction of storage houses. I told you that after harvest, it's very essential to store the yield in a storage space. So these have to be constructed. So who is constructing it? It's nothing but the humans. So humans help in the construction of storage houses so that we can keep the yield really well. And usage of machines. Somebody has to use the machines, right? Yes, like tractor, harvester, all these machines have to be run. So who's doing that? Again, human hands are required. What about addition of nutrients? Somebody has to distribute the nutrients to the soil so that the plants can absorb it and grow well. But who is doing that? Again, humans. What about human labor? For plowing, for just adding the fertilizers, for harvesting, for weeding, for all these purposes, human hands are very much necessary. So that's where we can find human labor is required. Are you getting my point? Yes. So that's what the very first input, human inputs. I hope you're clear. And now we are going to learn about the next one, physical inputs. What are they? Oh, these are considered as naturally occurring factors which are not in our hands. Rainfall, sunshine, temperature, and soil. So these factors also help in the agriculture. Okay, so these are considered as physical inputs. But when you talk about farming, it has various types. What are the different types of farming? Let's learn that. Farming has been divided into two as subsistence farming and commercial farming. So please understand the terms really well because I am going to explain this one by one. So you must have a proper idea of it. So please listen carefully so that you can understand it really well. Okay? The subsistence farming has been divided into two as intensive subsistence and primitive subsistence. Clear? And the primitive subsistence has been again divided into two as shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. And what about the commercial farming? This has been categorized into three as grain farming, mixed farming and plantation agriculture. So don't get confused. I'm going to explain each of these. So let's learn it. Oh, look at this. So what is in the subsistence farming? The type of farming is practiced to meet the requirements of farmer's family and not for sale or trade. Oh, so if there is a farmer and if the farmer has to feed own family, then they can have a very short space to cultivate certain crops, right? So this kind of farming can be called it as subsistence farming. And we know there are two categories in it. Intensive subsistence and primitive subsistence. Okay, so what we are going to learn next is all about intensive subsistence. Shall we? Yes. Oh, look at that. I think this is so cute, right? This type of farming is done on small size plots with limited use of external inputs and more labor inputs. These are doing for themselves, but still it needs more human inputs because they are the ones who are going to reap the harvest and therefore they have to work really well for it. So human labor is more. But what about the external inputs? The use of external inputs are minimal or limited. Let's take the same example of a garden here. So when you look at it, you can see that they both are just engaged in the activity of cultivation, which is happening in a very small space, right? So this is actually happening on a small sized plot where the human inputs or human labor inputs are high. Got it? But the use of external inputs like machineries are very less. I want to tell you the basic types of crops which are cultivated right under this particular category of farming. What are they? Rice, wheat, maize, pulses, oilseeds. So these are considered as crops that are cultivating under subsistence farming or more specifically intensive subsistence farming. Now it's time to learn the primitive subsistence, right? Yes. So this type of farming is done on with the use of simple tools and minimal human labor. So now the terms have changed. Minimal human labor. So human labor is less here, but use of simple tools are introduced. Oh, that is an easy thing, right? Not at all, because we know that the human labor is less here, but still they are just using certain tools to work with the cultivation. So in this scenario, we have to say there are two categories in it, shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. But what are they? Let's learn. So for your basic understanding, I have made it as two columns. Look at it. The very first one is known as shifting cultivation. And there is one more name for it. What is that? Slash and burn cultivation. But what is it exactly? Look at the picture here. Oh, when you look at it, you can see that the farmers clear the land by burning and allow the ashes to mix. Oh, that is a bit complicated. Don't worry, I will break it down for you. When you consider shifting cultivation, the farmers are going to burn the land first. Then the ashes are going to mix with the soil so that it becomes fertile. Now it's the time to cultivate. So they can cultivate it for a few seasons and they are going to abandon the land for some time. So that what happens? It allows the vegetation to grow back, and by the time the farmers are going to move on to a new land. This can be called it as shifting cultivation, or you can say slash and burn cultivation. And what are the different crops come under the category? Maize, yam and potato. What about the areas? Monsoon regions of South, Southeast and East Asia. But when you look at this side, see, it's nothing but nomadic herding. What it is exactly? Oh, herdsmen move from one place to another with their animals for fodder and water along the defined routes. You might have seen herdsmen usually just shift from one place to another with their animals. But what are the animals which are coming into this category? Sheep, camel, yak, so that their products can be taken by these herdsmen. But what are these products? Meat, milk, wool, etc. And where these are happening? Arid regions of Sahara, Central Asia and some parts of India. So this is all about nomadic herding. And now what we are going to learn is all about the next category. Commercial grain farming. This type of farming is practiced to grow a single crop over hectares of land for commercial purpose. So people need to eat. The population is in demand of these kind of food items too. So these have to be cultivated in large areas so that the population's demand can be fulfilled. So this is the way the commercial grain farming is done. And please don't forget about it. This is happening in a very large area, not in a very small sized plot. And now what we are going to learn is all about the different types of crops that are cultivated under commercial grain farming. What are they? Wheat and maize. And where these are cultivating? Temperate grasslands of North America, Europe and Asia. So these are the places where the grain farming or the commercial grain farming is predominantly happening. Now we are going to talk about the next type, commercial mixed farming. Inside commercial farming itself, this is the second type, commercial mixed farming. In this type of farming, we are growing multiple crops and rearing livestock. So it's not a single crop. We are cultivating multiple crops at the same time and rearing livestock so that the products can be taken. Clear? So look at it. You can see that multiple varieties of crops are being cultivated here. And this is what you need to learn about commercial mixed farming. But what about these? The various crops come under the category. Cereals, legumes, all of these are considered as the crops that are cultivated right under this category of mixed farming. And what about the areas? Look at it. Europe, USA, South Africa and Southeast Australia. So these are the places where these type of farmings are predominantly happening. And here is a third category. What is it? Commercial plantation agriculture. So this type of farming is practiced to grow single crop in large scale with large amount of capital and labor. So these are also happening in large spaces or large areas because of the demand of population. So look at it. tea and coffee. You might have heard about tea plantations and coffee plantations, right? Yes. So that's what the same idea that you need to understand here. So tea and coffee are considered as the crops that are cultivated right under the category of plantation agriculture. But areas, tropical regions of Malaysia, Brazil, India and Sri Lanka. So these are the places where these type of cultivations are happening. So what are these crops? These are nothing but the plants which are grown in large areas to meet the population's demand. And what are the different type of crops? I think we are quite sure about the types of crops here, right? Food crops, fiber crops and beverage crops. The first one is known as food crop. And what are the examples? Rice, wheat, millet, maize, etc. What about fiber crops? We'll get fiber out of it. So jute and cotton are considered as fiber crops. What about beverage crops? Tea and coffee. So both of these are considered as beverage crops, because we need to refresh ourselves every day. So beverage crops are also very, very important. So now what we are going to learn is all about the crops in detail. So this is a very, very important one, and I am going to just make a solution for remembering the country names or the places where these crops are cultivated. People always have confusions on remembering these things, and that is what the reason I made a card for you. So don't worry, I will explain it to you so that you will understand it. So what is in the rice? It is a staple diet of the tropical and subtropical regions and grows in alluvial clay soil with good water retention capacity. So rice is a staple food, as we all know that, but where do these grow? In the clay soil where you can find a good retention of water. And it needs high temperature, high humidity and rainfall. It's where you can see these crops predominantly. China, India, Japan and Sri Lanka. But to remember these terms, I have used a code here. So this is a very, very simple one. So please remember it. Jix, okay? Jix is nothing but a person. So imagine in that way. Jix is a person who can make fried rice for the dinner. Okay? So Jix makes fried rice for the dinner. So J represents Japan, I represents India, C represents China and S represents Sri Lanka. It's all about wheat. Oh, so this requires moderate temperature and rainfall and grows in loamy soil. See the differences between rice and wheat? Rice grows in a clay soil environment, whereas wheat is growing in loamy soil. It is extensively grown in USA, Canada, Russia and India. And we have a core again, uric. And how it can be connected with wheat? Wheat can manage your uric acid levels. This is the way that you need to remember. So wheat can manage your uric acid levels. U means USA, R represents Russia, I represents India, C represents Canada. So this is the way that you need to remember the code. It's all about millets. Oh, these are grown on less fertile sandy soil. So soil has changed again. And it needs less rainfall and high to moderate temperature. Jowar, bajra and ragi are grown in India, China and Nigeria. Nick millets. Nick made a healthy salad out of millets. Very, very simple. Nick made a healthy salad out of millets. So what is N? It is nothing but the Nigeria. What about I? I is India. What about C? C is China. Clear? So this is the way that you need to remember. It's all about maize. So this requires moderate temperature, rainfall, sunlight and grows in well-drained fertile soils. And mainly grown in North America, Brazil, China, Russia, Canada, India and Mexico. So there are many countries, right? How do we remember it? We have a card again. So ABC square rim. What is it? ABC square rim? This is square, okay? Square means, okay, there are two C's here. That is what the reason I have used square here, okay? So what is A? A is nothing but America, but it is North America. So that is what the reason I have used a symbol term for it. It's A, okay? So America. What is B? B for Brazil and C for China. And one more C is there. It's nothing but the Canada. And what about R? R represents Russia, I represents India, M represents Mexico. So this is the way that you need to remember the code. So what is this exactly? maize grows in an ABC square rim. Clear? Ooh, look at it. It's all about cotton. They look so beautiful, right? Yes. So cotton requires high temperature, light rainfall and grows on alluvial soil, right? So leading producers are China, USA, India, Pakistan, Brazil and Egypt. Oh, what is it? What is this particular code? Pie cube. Cotton. So cotton balls put in a pie cube. Very simple code, right? Cotton balls put in a simple pie cube. Clear? Very, very simple one. Oh, coffee, my favorite. I hope there are a lot of coffee lovers here, right? Yes. So this requires a warm and wet climate and grown in well-drained loamy soil. And leading producers are Brazil, Colombia and India. IBC. So IBC and coffee. So very, very simple one. IBC coffee is so fresh. The brand name is IBC. That is how I just imagined here. So IBC is nothing but a brand of coffee. Okay, this is just an imagination here, just to make sure that you're remembering the terms really well. So IBC coffee is really fresh. And finally, we're going to talk about agriculture development. What is it? Efforts made to increase the farm production in order to meet the growing demand of increasing population. So population is increasing day by day. So it's very important to meet the requirements of them, so that the agricultural land can be increased. But not only that, there are various efforts can be made to develop agriculture. But what are they? Increasing cropland, increasing the number of crops, improving irrigation facilities, using disease-resistant and high-yielding seeds, then using fertilizers. So these are the various methods or efforts can be put to develop the agriculture. So in this way, the increasing population's demand can be fulfilled. And that's the end of the class, and I hope everyone really enjoyed it. And we'll see you next class with an amazing session similar to this. So have a nice day and goodbye everyone. Please don't forget to put your doubts in the comment box. I'm here to help you out. And not only that, go through all the lessons properly. And if you really like this video, please like, share and subscribe. And we have an amazing coupon code running that has been given in the description too. And that's all about today's class. Thank you so much for listening.